Hello and welcome to Culture Shark, a show about all things pop culture. I'm Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and today we are continuing our look at comic book classics, storylines that we've never read before. Today is Black Panther, The Panther's Rage from Jungle Action. Such a weird name for a comic book, but here we go.
You know what's really funny? Like it's really horrible, and I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the way because maybe maybe I don't need to get out of the way. Maybe it is just me, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it anyways. Um, I keep I keep thinking Jungle Fever, which is completely different.
Completely different, yes.
Uh, but yeah, this is okay. So this is interesting because I've never read this. And so anytime I recommended like Black Panther, like back when I worked at Half Price Books, I put up like this thing for like right before Infinity War came out. Oh
Hmm.
no, it was right before Endgame came out. Uh and it was like here's the movie and here's what you should read uh if you like this movie. Um and so whenever for Black Panther I just put Christopher Priest's.
Hmm.
But no, that movie's definitely a lot of Panther's Rage.
Yeah, it is. It's weird because I pulled it up on Wikipedia after I read this. Black Panther the movie. They were talking about the influences, and they mentioned like Christopher Priest's run and everything. They did not mention Jungle Action. I'm like, but that's what the movie is. It's a lot of this.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean, it's kind of like how the Batman doesn't bring up Zero Year, even though it's majority Zero Year.
yeah. So this story does deal with Killmonger, and it's weird because it says first appearance of Killmonger, and it's like then like, and here's the issues Killmonger previously appeared in, and I was like, wait, this is not his first appearance. So it's the first time he's called Killmonger. So
Well, this is, and we don't have to jump straight into it, but like, I guess like, what is Black Panther's publication history before this? Because this seems like it could be like one of the first times he appears.
he was a recurring. He first appeared in Fantastic Four, and then I think he joined Avengers. So he had like a lot of Fantastic Four adventures and Avengers stories. So this may be his first solo story or solo series, but don't I wouldn't because before Jungle Action had a different character. As Marvel had a history of reusing old titles they used before, like the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Um,
Um.
so
So I did look a little bit into the history of Jungle Action.
mhm.
Um. So essentially, uh, what happened is they were so it before Marvel did Jungle Action, it was Atlas Comics.
Mhm.
Um, and apparently, and this it seems kind of weird, but they did all of these like African stories, but the stories were always like white protagonists. And so
Right.
the reason that whenever Jungle Action Volume 2 by whenever Marvel comes in, apparently Don McGregor came in and was like, "Hey, we're doing Jungle Action now. Why don't we actually have like a black protagonist?"
Right.
And so that's kind of how we get Black Panther. In fact, so on Marvel Unlimited, it actually starts with Jungle Action number 6.
Mhm.
From what I've read, like a couple issues before this, I don't think it was like 1 through 5, but at least Jungle Action number 5 is just a reprint of an Avengers story with Black Panther in it.
That would make sense. Marvel. I mean, you remember when X-Men briefly got canceled and just went to reprints? Marvel would often reprint stories back then, so that
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. So I had never. heard of either of these creators before. Billy Graham's the artist, and not the evangelist, but and Don McGregor is the writer. And I thought they were both outstanding, and they both don't have a lot of Marvel work.
Yeah, yeah.
Don McGregor worked on Killraven, and he worked on Jungle Action and some other Black Panther stories.
Oh,
Uh,
real quick, bear with me. I went over to a friend's house. I have a really bad dog allergy, and his dog was shedding, so I'm dealing with a little bit of that. If you hear anything, that is me. I apologize.
yes, Caleb. If you hear anything, it's just Caleb barking from his dog allergy, which is okay. Yeah. So uh, I really, Don McGregor, his style is very narrative. It's like you're reading a book, but I didn't mind the narration block boxes as much as other books.
It's the weirdest thing. You know how people call so this came out in issues, but a lot of people look to this and say that this really is Marvel's first graphic novel.
Hmm.
Not only do I agree with this 100%, I think that you take out the pictures, this could have just been a novel starring Black Panther.
Yes, they are it's so well written and so descriptive of what's going on. And like if you took out the narration boxes, this would be a very quick, just flip through. But if any other comic book where it's like, oh, Black Panther's gonna fight a crocodile, okay, it's over. I mean, it really goes into details. And in a little bit, I'll pull up some pictures and show you what I'm talking about. I just want to talk about the artist real quick. Uh, Billy Graham does not have a whole lot of Marvel work. He worked on this and Luke Cage. Um, I can't help but wonder if it's because he was a black artist in the 70s that he did not get much work, and they only seem to put him on titles featuring black characters, which I'm always like is dumb. I don't like when people are like, "Oh, we're making a Black Panther movie, only black people are allowed to work on it," or be like, "Oh, we're making a Captain America movie, only white people are going to work on it." It's very racist.
Yeah.
So, um, I think his work is fantastic, and there's quotes from him saying he wanted to be a Jack Kirby, and I can definitely see that influence in his work. But let's go ahead and pull up some of the pictures I sent
Yeah.
you if you got them.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I want to point out real quick that I think was very interesting, because I actually didn't look up Don McGregor's bibliography until just now. So going through this, watching the Black Panther movie, I've always thought that its first two acts were very, and especially the first act, very James Bond inspired. Like if
Hmm.
you want that Black James Bond, you got the Black Panther movie right there. Uh, I just read up on Don McGregor. Apparently, in '95, he wrote for Dark Horse
Hmm.
a 3-issue miniseries, James Bond 007: The Quasimodo Gambit.
Really?
Yeah, so and I thought the Jungle Action actually had uh, quite a bit of Bond feel to it. Like there's a lot of and by Bond I mean like classic Bond, not like Roger Moore. Closer to a little bit of Sean Connery, mainly the books, just a lot of like political intrigue, which is what I loved about it. But yeah, I mean, now that I know that he actually wrote a James Bond story, totally makes sense.
The other thing I noticed was this had a very much like a pulp type, classic heroes feel to it.
Oh yeah,
Very much, if you are trying to get a kid interested in comic books, you've got Black Panther fighting crocodiles and dinosaurs and rhinos and just all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, uh, you could definitely see the roots it has to, classic comic books and the way the narration boxes are. Um, remind me of like Conan or one of those other comics.
yeah.
And he later, Don later went on to write Zorro comics, and I could definitely see that. So,
Oh yeah, definitely.
this is just a panel I just wanted to pull up here where um, I wish you could see the narration box. It's a little better, but that's okay. It just talk about how he narrates, and any other comic book, it would just be like one or two, three panels. Black Panther's fighting a crocodile and it's done. But this goes on for pages of the struggle and just visual descriptions of what's going on, and it's just I can't write that way. It's really well done. uh, so this story is largely Black Panther is returning to his nation, and there's a threat from Killmonger. Killmonger is attacking tribes, and Black Panther is trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to track down Killmonger, and he kind of goes on a quest and faces off against many different challenges, many different villains. It's kind of like a gauntlet he's going through
Oh yeah.
over several months, and that's basically the main plot. So I wrote down some different things I wanted to talk about. Um, I thought it was funny that some of the villains are kind of silly. It is a Marvel '70s comic.
Hmm.
I thought it was funny that we had a Venom and a Carnage in this, but they're neither of the Spider-Man villains. And you know, Spider-Man, Eddie Brock Venom, that name never quite made sense. Here, the character makes sense for him to be called Venom. He's a
Yeah.
he's got snakes that are he's basically became immune to venom poison, and so he has all these snakes that he charms and uses to fight.
Well, I like it always reminds me of Spider-Man 3, where Aunt May actually has to like spell it out. It's like revenge is like a poison. And it's like, oh, venom. I get it. Ha. Um, I have a question. I don't know if you caught this.
Mhm.
Did this story seem very similar to what we just read in Demon in a Bottle?
Similar to demon in a bottle. Um, I didn't notice it. I read a bunch of stuff this week besides Black Panther, so I
Okay.
was kind of all over the place. I'd already really largely forgotten Demon in a
So
Bottle. So,
so replace Wakanda with
mhm,
Stark International.
mhm,
Replace alcoholism with just anger issues. Um, I mean, it really is just about a person who has. I'm not going to say he has an addiction to anger, but he definitely has trouble controlling that. Like Tony Stark has trouble controlling his alcoholism. Um, and going through kind of a gauntlet of villains that are just piling on top of him while someone is trying to kind of usurp him from his status of power, if that makes sense.
mhm.
So I thought there were parallels uh, between this, which this actually this actually has a it. I think it's a trope um, as far as king style stories go, because he is king of Wakanda. Uh, One of my favorite things, and you see this in Thor, you see this in Aquaman, and now I can say you see it in Black Panther. Uh, the idea of how can you rule if you're never there?
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I think someone even says, "Why do you feel?" I can't remember the exact wording, but it's like how do you feel worthy to rule? You don't know your own people.
Yeah, it's almost like he's tainted because he's been in the United States for so long, and when he comes back, he's almost like an outsider. Like they're
Yeah,
like, "You've forgotten our ways. You've been over there for so long."
and the thing is in a way, it's one of those things where I think everyone is right in that to a degree, because the piano, the piano thing is so cool because they don't have pianos in Wakanda,
Hmm.
and because Wakanda has been so shut off from the rest of the world, because they're so concerned about preserving their own culture that they don't have something as beautiful and as simple as a piano.
Hmm.
Like it's so cool. But at the same time, you're right. How do you feel worthy to rule if you're never here?
Right. And Wakanda's it's interesting because you have the kingdom that has all this technology and stuff, but then you also have the villages that have no technology and they don't know anything about technology, and
Yeah.
so there's a lot of Black Panther interacting with his villagers. Let's go ahead and click another picture here. Let's see. I think that's more. I think I have more of the crocodiles fighting. Yeah. Um, so I just wanted to. I posted a couple of these. One of the things, the tricks that Billy Graham does is his ability to convey emotion through the mask. You always know what Black Panther is feeling. If you take away the narration boxes and stuff, you can tell exactly, you know, and that's not something most artists can do, where you have someone with a fully masked face. And then click the next one. I think the next one's also, if I did this right. Yeah, you could tell the emotions through the face, and it's throughout the book. It's really cool.
It very much is like a unique skill. And it's really hard to do in artistry. I think it's really hard to do um, in in film. Um, I think the best that I've ever seen it actually is the Mandalorian. Um,
I
especially
was gonna say Deadpool does it well.
Deadpool. Yeah, Deadpool does do it well. The reason I always point out the Mandalorian though is because there is no animation. There is no um, it's just the helmet. And I always think about the third episode of the first season, The Sin, where he's dropped off, Grogu, or the baby. At that time we knew him, or the child, uh, and like as he's sitting in his cockpit, about to take off, and you just kind of you can like it is just his helmet, but there's something about it. You can just see the regret and sadness, and then the determination uh, of him getting up and going to save Grogu. So I've always enjoyed, and that's why I hate I hate nanotechnology. uh, do you know where I'm going with this?
Um, I do like that when Black Panther's injured, we see his suit ripped and everything, and then you kind of lose that with nanotechnology, like the
Y-
suits heal, and
yep.
it's like,
What where I'm going with it. So I agree with that. I
mhm.
also hate nanotechnology because it just makes it's so lazy that like
Mhm.
anyone can just take their mask off and you can see their emotion instead of just having the mask on and having to work to get the emotion. You know what I mean?
In the MCU, it's one of those things where I'm gonna bring up The Fugitive starring Harrison Ford. He had a full beard at the beginning of the movie, and this movie studio hated it. They're like, "No, we paid for Harrison Ford. He needs to shave that off because we want to see Harrison Ford." And the MCU was similar. They're like, "Oh, we want to see Robert Downey Jr. We don't want to see Iron Man. Got to get that helmet off. We got to get Spider Man's mask off." And they do it constantly. It's really annoying.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'll give the Mandalorian, even season 3, is I mean they have Pedro Pascal, but I mean honestly, if you're watching The Mandalorian, I don't think anybody wants to see Pedro Pascal. I think we want to hear his voice, obviously, uh, but no, I mean like I or the Halo show on Paramount, Master Chief, and he's never takes off his helmet. At least whenever he does take off his helmet, the player
In the
doesn't
video
see it.
games, yeah,
Yeah, but it's like, oh no, 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 we paid for Pablo Schreiber, and I'm like, why?
yeah.
Who's Pablo Schreiber? The bad guy from SVU?
Yeah, a lot of and they did this with Book of Boba Fett, where part of Boba Fett's mystique was you never saw his face, and he hardly ever wore the helmet in Book of Boba Fett. It was really annoying. So let's go ahead and pull up the next picture. Uh, I wanted to point out Billy Graham's really cool panel layouts. So on this one side, you have the story going down the middle. You have Black Panther facing off. If you click the next picture, the story continues, but across from him, you see Killmonger looking back at him menacingly, and it's just really cool the layouts of the pages.
That's another thing I like. Um, is this is Killmonger. This is not Golden Jaguar or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, he's not the Black Panther, but evil.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. That's just another thing that I don't like about modern superhero movies is everybody is a reflection. You know what? Here's the thing. I think it's smart whenever all your villains can be a reflection of your hero in some way, but not a literal mirror match.
Hmm.
Like with Batman, I think with Batman, every villain reflects him in some way. You got Scarecrow who uses fear, the same way Batman does. Riddler has the intellect. Penguin has the money and the status, but they're not literal mirror matches.
Yeah, and this book does have stakes. If one of the complaints about Man of Steel was you see all this destruction and it's a well, big deal. No one got hurt, or you didn't really see the death and destruction until the later movies that kind of went back to that. This one, a villager dies, and you see the fallout from that for several issues. What happens to the family after that? Or Wakabi loses an arm later, and which is interesting because he gets a metal arm like Winter Soldier, and Winter
Yeah,
Soldier spends all that time in Wakanda. I didn't
yeah.
know if that was an intentional thing there in the movies. They're like, oh, this is like Wakabi in the comics, So
Maybe. You know what? I didn't think about that.
right. So I want to talk about Venom real quick, or Horatio. Uh, they do flesh out this character some, and so I read up on this character. I don't know if you caught this, the subtext between Horatio and Taku is the Wakandan's name. They Don's plan was for these characters to be gay
Oh.
and to be in a relationship, and that Venom also had feelings towards Killmonger, and it seems like he had been abused and hated his whole life. That anybody that shows him any affection, he automatically feels attraction to them. Was the vibe that I was kind of getting from him.
That there's a so first of all, what you're telling me is this you're telling me that this actually could have been called Jungle Fever. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but secondly, that reminds me of a this is a line from Nick Miller in New Girl, where like there's someone that's like yelling at him. He's like, "Stop being so mean to me, or I swear I'm gonna fall in love with you."
Right. Um, and so Marvel told him, no, you can't do that. But if you know about that, the subtext is there when you read through their scenes. And he would later, Don would and Killraven have the first interracial kiss in Marvel. So you could tell he was constantly trying to do groundbreaking things in these comic books, and maybe that's why he doesn't have a whole lot of Marvel work. Maybe he was butting heads with editorial all the time. I don't know. That's just speculation on my part. Um, the scene you have up now, I put in here. It does show these two background characters we see a lot, Kazibi and Tayet, I think is their names. They are henchmen for Killmonger, and they're kind of like running gag joke characters. They keep talking they talk a big talk, but anytime Black Panther shows up, they're both worthless and get their butts kicked. They remind me a lot of Turk and Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Oh yeah.
So,
Did by the way,
mhm.
did this kind of feel like a Jonathan Hickman book to you at all?
Maybe a little
Just
bit.
yeah, like there's just like the even the smallest characters have names and um just a sprawling cast of characters. Like I reading this, something like Wakanda Forever and Eyes of Wakanda kind of makes sense to me now because at first I'm like, oh come on, a Black Panther movie, a Black Panther show without Black Panther. I still don't prefer it, but with like this sprawling cast of characters, I'm like, I can kind of see it.
There's material to draw from, definitely. Uh, I included this panel here because in screenwriting class they talk about the save the cat moment, where you have your hero do something heroic to show they're a hero. This is Killmonger's kill the cat moment, where they see a bird that is drowning in like toxic waste, and Kazibi or Tyat, one of them goes to save the bird, and Killmonger's like, "No, leave it." He's like, "This is the kill the cat moment for him." So this is an evil character. There is no good in him. So
I always loved that. I never knew there was a name for it. Save the cat and kill the cat. I never knew that.
well, I've never heard the term "kill the cat." I've definitely heard "save the cat," but this is a kill the cat moment
Yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like,
definitely.
but you have to, have a moment where your hero does something heroic, so your audience will root for him.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it also um I think the most important thing is uh you have to have the hero choose to save the cat instead of catching the bad guy. Um
Hmm.
I've always loved that about the train sequence in Spider-Man 2. One of the greatest scenes in all of superhero films.
Hmm.
Like superhero stuff nowadays, it's really just a wrestling match at this point. It's just about, oh, we got Captain America versus Red Hulk, and we got the Thunderbolts versus Sentry, and I'm like, I want to see superheroes be superheroes, man.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see what the next picture I have saved here. I don't remember what all I had saved. Just again showing you the cool layouts. There's a lot of really cool splash pages throughout this whole series, and just the
Yeah,
epicness of everything going on in this scene. I mean, you could just sit here and stare at the scene for 30 minutes and keep noticing new things. The battle, the dinosaurs. There's uh, flying vehicles in the background, explosions. It's just cool.
it's really weird because so Billy Graham, that's so weird to say.
I know.
uh, Franklin, I'm sorry, Billy Graham's style.
Billy
uh,
Sunday.
his art style is very much his art style is very much Jack Kirby. I think his layouts are like so reminiscent of Jim Lee.
Hmm. I could see
Um,
that.
just like you have the big picture and then you have the panels in the picture. I've always attributed that to Jim Lee. Splash pages, I always think of Jim Lee when I see splash pages.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I just wanted to post some examples. There's a lot of shots of just there'll be like little sequences of Black Panther, getting from one point to the other, but each square is different. It's almost like animation cells, like you're watching
Yeah.
a cartoon. Just I wish this guy had got more work. He's really great.
Um, actually, you know what? Here, give me 1 second, because I know it's here somewhere. Got to be careful. We don't send each other weird things. Just Oh yeah, we got that going. um, I don't for some reason the ways in which you sent them to me, I wasn't able to download them normally,
Okay.
so I just have them here.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, this one right here, this was dope.
Yeah. Well, especially when you read it through Marvel Unlimited because it doesn't show you the whole picture at once. It starts with that little panel at the top left where Black Panther's laying there, and then it goes to the next panel, and then it pulls back, and there's this huge tapestry of this epic fight.
Yeah, Marvel Unlimited definitely. I'll complain about like the actual user interface all day,
Hmm.
but the way they lay out those the way they lay out those
It has like a
uh
panel view where.
yeah, yeah. Oh, and you know what? That's actually another that's another Jim Lee thing that
Hmm.
I actually that I actually have always hated. Um which is because of his use of these types of pages. Um there's actually it ruins reveals. So whenever you're reading the first Hush, I'd say the first Hush because Hush 2 comes out this Wednesday. um, but so you're reading, and technically speaking, there's supposed to be like this conversation with somebody who's like, yes, I've been behind it the whole time. I'm the one that gave Thomas Elliot the information, blah, blah. I do all this, do all that. And so it's supposed to be Batman having this conversation with someone you don't see, and then it turns out to be the Riddler.
Hmm.
The problem is, is that page is on the left page of the book.
Hmm.
And on the right page is the reveal that it's the Riddler. So
Yeah.
immediately as you turn the page, before the conversation even starts, you see the Riddler right there.
Yeah. Your eyes are drawn to it. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I like about digital comic books now is because we have the opportunity to focus on individual panels without ruining the surprise or reveal.
Yeah. Every once in a while, it kind of glitches out, but for this book, it works really, really well.
Yeah. So
So
let's
let's go
see.
on. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. This is where Killmonger is ultimately defeated. This is one of those things you'll kind of miss if you're looking at panel view, but when you pull out, the whole image is Black Panther, his head upside down. He's like leaning
Yeah.
backwards. Like again, really cool layouts. And I was reading reviews of this where people don't like this book, and I'm like,
Really?
why? Well, some people are like, "Oh, it's too there's too many stereotypes," or "It's too wordy," or blah blah. And I'm like, "You're not paying attention. You're not." you're, I think a lot of modern comic book readers don't like to read. They just want to see the action, and they're not used to narration boxes. So this can be daunting if you're not used to narration boxes because
Yeah.
there's a lot of them.
I'm gonna let people know now. If you don't like reading, then you don't need to read Daredevil. I mean, Daredevil still has the narration boxes. Like,
Uh, so I really like this. One other things I have in my notes here is they have what they call the resurrection altar, and that is how they are creating a lot of the villains. So I thought that was a cool little MacGuffin. It wasn't like, oh, we're all mutants. Like, Marvel at one point gets very lazy where they just say, oh, it's a mutant, and explain away how someone got their powers. So this one it's a little different. The resurrection altar, which was cool.
it kind of reminded me of like the flower ritual from the movie.
Yeah. Uh, quick question, because I'm not terribly familiar with Black Panther other than reading this in the movie. Does he have to do that ritual over and over with the herb to get his powers? Like, do they
Uh,
fade after a while and he has to like recharge? Because they were doing the in this book they were doing the procedure again, and his girlfriend interrupted the procedure at one point, or the
maybe.
ceremony. Yeah.
I don't remember it ever. So I, the only leg up that I have on you is the priest run,
Hmm.
and I don't remember it ever happening in the priest run.
Okay, so that might be something I look into.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, though, I love this. I thought this was great. I thought this is a book that more people should be talking about. If I had to give it anything negative, uh, his a lot of the dialogue from his girlfriend Monica Lynn is dated. It's the 70s like jive talk. Anytime she
Yeah,
started talking, it would usually take me out of the story.
yeah. It's and I'll be honest, that kind of is a product of its time.
Mhm.
Because you go back and you read Heroes for Hire around this time, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Um,
and it doesn't the scene in the airplane does not help any of it because now you that's all immediately as soon as someone starts talking jive, you immediately go to that scene in the airplane every time.
Excuse me, sir. I speak a little jive. Oh man. But yeah, no, I definitely, I didn't know what to expect going into this. I thought I'd like it because I like Black Panther. And I, I really like this era of comic books, the '70s, because I mean, this is kind of where Dennis O'Neil was everywhere. This is where Dave McElhinney's Iron Man really took off. Uh, so I've always been a fan of the '70s comic book era. So I had a feeling that I would like this, but man, I just adored this.
It's really great. I highly
It's
recommend this. I think one of the problems that people don't know about this story is because it's called Jungle Action.
yes. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I had no idea that Black Panther had one of those like action comics, detective comics, like
Or Journey into Mystery or
yeah.
Tales to Astonish, all these
Uh
titles.
I
Yep.
mean, the one that I've always hated the most, and by hated, it's just because like each of these characters deserves their own book. Is Tomb of Dracula like
Oh, that's
that's
right. What look
yeah,
like Moon Knight in that and
Moon Knight, Blade, Bloodstone, uh, and all these characters, they can carry their own books, but you just relegate them to like this weird
well,
anthology thing.
Dracula's a big that's a uh it's a name that the audience is familiar with.
Yeah.
So
But what else is there? There's this. What was Amazing Fantasy? What was Iron Man? Tales of Suspense?
Tales was it Tales of Suspense? Tales to Astonish was Thor, I think.
Yes, yes.
And Journey of Mystery was Thor. Tales to Astonish may have been Captain America or Ant-Man. I don't know. Like there's a bunch of these old 60s books that would eventually turn into Captain America or eventually turn into Iron Man or Doctor Strange or whatever.
Tales to Astonish was Ant Man.
Yeah.
And Groot. Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Groot is one of Marvel's oldest characters. So
So, tell me this: where did Abnett create any characters, or are they all like older characters?
most of them are 70s characters that he's using. I don't think he created any characters for
Okay,
well, Cosmo they created. They definitely created Cosmo, the
okay.
dog, and there's like some residents of nowhere that really are not in the movies that they create throughout the series if you read it. So
I know you think I'm good, dog.
yeah, Cosmo's a lot more fun than comics. It has a lot more um, scenes with Rocket. They're always fighting all the time. A lot of fun. So
Isn't
that
it?
was our. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was like, isn't it nice to review something we liked?
Yes,
I
this was
feel I feel like the past
this was
couple have been. Go ahead.
yeah, this was surprising. I did not expect to like this as much as I did. Black Panther's not. The thing against Black Panther, I just don't like Avenger characters historically. So I tend to stay away from them. But I know characters are popular for a reason. I want to find those stories that made them popular.
Yeah, like I mean, if and really, if you think about it, I think we haven't had like a 100% positive episode since the Sting. Wow, I was just looking back at our videos because I was kind of down at the end of the Mark Wade run. Saturday Night you didn't technically watch, so that one was kind of difficult.
Uh-huh.
Red Hulk we both hated. Um,
We killed Playas. We had Playas to cover more Red Hulk. We're like, nope, this will kill the
uh,
show.
the Apartment was
I thought it was good, but
it
a
made
little
me feel
heavy
weird.
for our show.
It made me
A little
feel weird.
problematic. Yeah.
And then Invincible Iron Man, I like more than you do, but you know, you just in general are not an Iron Man guy. Plus, like I talked about, it like Demon in the Bottle is one issue in an entire run that,
Hmm.
and then Electric State was also watch for that one this Wednesday. That one was something. Um, so it's nice to have something positive to say, and it's nice to have something good to see.
Right. So next week is one of our movie TV show episodes. It is going to be Tales from the Loop, which is also from the same creator of Electric State. I watched the first episode last night.
Okay.
It was great.
Okay.
So I'm on board.
All right. All right.
Uh,
And like I said, my dad my dad watched it when it first came out and he loved it. So I definitely have higher hopes going into that instead of Electric State.
right. So then the week following that, we're going to continue our dive into Avengers comics. We are reading Under Siege. This does not feature Steven Seagal, so that is good. This
uh,
is this is Avengers 270 through 277. This is a Masters of Evil story.
that was my question. Like, because for me, uh, whenever I think of Avengers and Siege, I think of the storyline from the late 2000s, early 2010s, where I believe it was. Um, so, what was it? Dark Reign? Was that the name of the storyline where the
Yes,
Dark Avengers like appear? And then Siege was where I believe the Dark Avengers attack New
Asgard.
New Asgard. Yes. Uh, does that is it kind of like that? Like
Nope.
what is Under Siege?
Under Siege is when you hear Avenger villains, you hear the Masters of Evil brought up a lot. This is like the Masters of Evil story where the Masters of Evil just whoop the Avengers butts. This is like I don't know why this wasn't turned into a movie, and then you could have set up Thunderbolts after this. So we will be reading this, and then we're going to follow it up with Thunderbolts. So we're going to get
Yeah.
two Masters of Evil stories back to back.
Is that kind of I guess from like a from a DC standpoint, kind of like Tower of Babel or uh the movie of Tower of Babel was called Justice League Doom, where it's like, you know, this is just like where this is where the Legion of Doom kind of finally win against the Justice League, and then they got to like come back from that.
Uh, I've never read this, so I'm just telling you what I know of it.
Okay,
So this is a story that I've been wanting to read for a very long time. So this is
who
like
wrote it?
like the looks like Roger Stern. So I'm pulling it up right now.
I love Roger Stern. Okay, I've only read
Here's
his
what
Spider Man.
here's what it says on Amazon. There are certain unwritten rules that apply to the Avengers. The Earth's mightiest heroes are united in an unbeatable unit. No intelligent foe would launch a direct assault on the mansion. Jarvis, the team's butler, is off limits to physical assault. But Baron Zemo, master of strategist and leader of the Masters of Evil, has no use for the restraints of society. Preying upon their emotional differences, he will divide and conquer the globe's premier super team. Outsmarting their high-tech defense system, he will kick down their front door. Harnessing the power of the world's most vicious villains, he will stop at nothing to taste victory, including beating a helpless butler. This is a story that breaks all the rules. You have been warned. So,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just from that, it kind of sounds like that we did get that story a little bit. That sounds a lot like the MCU's version of Civil War.
maybe.
um, which would make sense because, I mean, Civil War is one of the worst crossovers of all time, and it's a miracle that we got that movie out of that storyline. So if they pulled from Under Siege and that's one of the better crossovers or storylines, I'm like, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I've always heard a lot about the Masters of Evil, so I've always wanted to read their stories. And then I love Thunderbolts, so this will be good to read this and then go into Thunderbolts.
Yeah. The only my only exposure to the Masters of Evil are Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and even then, Doctor Doom was the leader. Oh, and then Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yeah, and this has rave reviews on Amazon. It's a 4.8 rating out of 5 average. So
Who is the Masters of Evil team there? I mean, like, is it Enchantress and all of them, or
I think so. I think it's like Hyde, Mr. Hyde, and Zemo and all them. So
okay? Because I've it's really funny. I've always known the name Masters of Evil, but really the only two people that I've ever, well, I guess the only three people I've ever associated with Masters of Evil is Doctor Doom from Ultimate Alliance, and then Zemo and Enchantress.
yeah, let me see if I can find a picture real quick, and then we'll wrap up the show. Let's see, Avengers Under Siege, Masters of Evil. Let me pull up this picture. Looks like we've got
Which,
some of the Wrecking Crew in there
okay,
and Atlas. Um, Let me share my screen. Do, 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 do. I don't know why it's not sharing the screen. There it goes. I see Atlas on the ground. I see one of the Wrecking Crew in the background. I don't know who the Electric Bolt looking guy is. Yeah, it looks. It may be a lot of the Thunderbolts members. So that would be like Moonstone and Screaming Mimi and Fixer and Beetle, those types of characters. So
you know what I've heard about Thunderbolts? I've heard, and like, you can never completely go by what you hear behind the scenes before uh uh you can never trust what goes on behind the scenes before a movie comes out. um but test audiences were pretty honest about Brave New World, so um I'm curious about this one. I've heard that Thunderbolts is kind of on the level of Winter Soldier. uh so we will have to see about that.
yeah, it looks like this is part of the story. Hercules' last stand. Looks like he's fighting the Wrecking Crew and Mr. Hyde. Can't remember
So
this guy's name down here. So I think it's Killer Shark or something.
so Hercules, he's like a big Marvel character then.
Yeah, I mean he's a big part of the Avengers. And the thing, I don't know if have you ever read the Wrecking Crew at all?
No.
All of their, they're like construction workers, but all their weapons are like enhanced by like I think Loki enhanced them, so they're all kind of like um, probably not as strong as Mjolnir or whatever Thor's hammer is, but they're all enhanced by like Guardian magic and stuff, so they hit pretty hard.
Okay.
So Yeah.
I don't know. It's just because Hercules is he's a he's just a mystical figure, and for the most part in public domain. So it's kind of weird whenever like a public domain character who, when you think Hercules, I think most people go straight to the Disney movie, or Kevin Sorbo. Uh,
Right, and Stan Lee would do this. I mean, Thor is a a public domain character also, and Loki and everything there,
yeah, yeah.
So,
Um, but yeah, I guess for me, Hercules is like Black Knight, where it's like, oh, okay, so this character's actually pretty big in the Avengers.
yeah, yeah, Hercules has been a member for a lot of the different teams throughout time. So, very cool. That will be in 2 weeks, and then next week will be Tales from the Loop. So we hope you have enjoyed this. I hope you all will check out Jungle Action. I think it's collected in the first Marvel epic for Black Panther.
I think that epic is actually called Panther's Rage.
Yeah, and there's apparently follow-up stories to this that are also by Don. So I'm gonna check
Uh,
those out at a
I
later
th-
date.
I think there's. I mean, if we want to save it for a future video, I think there's one
Yeah,
called Black Panther versus the Klan, which I would
I don't
love
think
to
that
read.
story. Yeah, I don't think that story is finished. I think that's why I didn't include it on the list. It seems like he leaves the title before it's finished.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
there's some later ones that Marvel Comics presents, and I checked, and that one is on Marvel Unlimited. So I think that would be a cool one
Okay,
to
gotcha.
go over at
Cool.
another date. So until then, I've been Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and we'll catch you next time in the Shark Pond.
See ya.
As Caleb dies